Together, we will work together. We will fight together. We will sacrifice together to restore the opportunity that our grandparents left for us so that we can leave it for our grandchildren, so that we can once again restore a country that is strong, self-reliant, and sovereign. That is the country we're in this for. That is why we stay united. That is why we go forward. May God keep our land glorious and free. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune. Bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.
A loony hello to you, you wonderful people. We may not have the biggest audience, but I think you're all wonderful. Rex here again with another episode of Common Sense Loonie, the show that dissects the weird, the wacky, and the outrageous stories from Canada. We've got a fun one today. We're talking about guns, Pierre Poilievre, environmental protections, and more. Of course, we're going to start with the biggest news of the day, and that is from Battle River-Crowfoot, where Pierre Poilievre is running in a by-election to get his seat back in Parliament. If you've been living under a rock, I'll give you the short and the sweet. So, Pierre ran for Prime Minister in the 2024 election. He didn't win, and not only that, he lost his seat in his own riding of Nepean Carleton to Liberal Bruce Fanjoy. Because of this, he couldn't serve as leader of the opposition. So, in Alberta's riding of Battle River-Crowfoot, Conservative Damien Carrick gave up his seat so Poilievre could run in his riding to get a seat back in Parliament and continue his role as opposition leader. To be honest, Pierre didn't really have much competition. His strongest rival in the riding was Bonnie Critchley, a retired military service person running as an independent. The riding was so strong Conservative-based that Bonnie didn't really have much of a chance. Not to mention that she came across as awkward and abrasive. She campaigned primarily on the fact that she was from the riding and not from Ottawa. If you watched her coverage of the debate, she didn't really come across as knowledgeable of the issues. Oh yeah, and then there were the goofballs at the longest ballot. They struck again, seemingly targeting Poilievre. The final ballot ended up having over 200 names. The system of voting had to be changed from ticking off your choice to actually writing in the name of your candidate. I'm not really going to get into the longest ballot too much because I think they get way too much attention as it is. Basically, they don't like the first to the post system and want electoral reform, but have no clue what system they want to replace it with. They put on as many candidates as they can to confuse voters and basically get clout. Anyways, they're much more annoying than they are effective. Okay, so let's get down to it. The by-election was today, and spoiler alert, Pierre killed it.
Pierre Poilievre is headed back to Ottawa as an Alberta Member of Parliament. The Conservative Party leader won the Battle River-Crowfoot by-election Monday night with about 80% of the vote. Despite not living in Alberta in the past 2 decades, Poilievre was a heavy favorite in this rural, traditionally conservative riding.
From the very get-go, he was 80 to 85% of the votes, and it didn't really change through the night. So Pierre is back in the saddle again. The election has been called, and he can continue as leader of the opposition, challenging Carney at every turn. He managed to secure 80% of the votes, so it was definitely a strong showing. Bonnie managed to get around 10%, so not bad. Congratulations, Mr. Poilievre. Can't wait to see you back in action again.
The next test for the Conservative leader in his quest to become the next Prime Minister, a leadership review in January.
Moving right along, let's take a hop across the pond to the UK, where something very interesting is happening. Look, if you've been watching our previous episodes, you know we've hammered on how the UK, much like Canada, have gone overboard with these global warming policies. Remember those massive subsidies for electric vehicles that tanked when folks realized charging infrastructure was a joke? Or the rush to ban gas boilers, leaving homeowners scrambling with sky-high energy bills during winter that still feel pretty darn cold? And don't get me started on the net zero targets that force factories to shut down or move overseas, killing jobs in places like steel towns. Now look, to be clear, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We're not saying climate change isn't real. It is happening. And we need smart action. But the UK has been flooring the gas pedal on green rules without checking the brakes, and it's wrecked their growth, jacked up costs for everyday people, and left them lagging behind economies that balance things better. The point, we're racing too fast toward perfection, and it's backfiring. Well, it sounds like the UK might finally be tapping the brakes and realize they've been speeding into a ditch. This one comes to us from the UK Times. Rachel Reeves to take aim at environmental protections in bid to speed up infrastructure projects, says reports. So, quick rundown. Rachel Reeves is the UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer, basically their top finance boss, in charge of the budget, taxes, and kickstarting the economy under the new Labour government. So the article dives right in. Rachel Reeves is preparing to strip back environmental protections in an attempt to accelerate infrastructure building and boost the economy, according to the reports. The Chancellor is considering major reforms that would make it more difficult for wildlife concerns to hold up developments. So think about that for a second. Reeves didn't start as some anti-green crusader. She's got a background in economics from the Bank of England, and as Shadow Chancellor, she pushed for green tech investments. But history shows she is pragmatic. Back in 2024, she scaled down the Labour's huge £28 billion green spending pledge because inflation and debt were biting hard. Now, as Chancellor, she's looking at these rules inherited from the EU days that tie projects in knots over every bat or bird. It's like they've learned the hard way that endless delays on roads, housing, and energy grids aren't just annoying. They're choking off jobs and growth. Okay, so let's skip ahead in the piece here because it gets even bolder. Here it is. But Ms. Reeves is considering more contentious reforms that are likely to trigger further backlash from environmental groups, according to the Times. Among the changes under discussions are plans for a smaller UK-only list of protected species, which would give less weight to wildlife considered rare across Europe, but relatively common in Britain. Ms. Reeves is also reportedly considering abolishing the EU precautionary principle that forces developers to prove projects will have no impact on protected nature sites. Instead, a new test would assess the risks and benefits of building. Okay, from where I'm sitting, this is exactly how it should have been handled from the jump. Imagine if the UK had started with a balanced scorecard, weighing real economic benefits against environmental risks, instead of this knee-jerk prove zero harm or bust approach. That precautionary principle sounds notable, but in practice, it's let tiny concerns halt massive projects that could have created thousands of jobs and modernized the grid. A UK-focused species list? Smart. Why block a wind farm over a critter that's thriving locally just because it's rare in France? This isn't about trashing the planet, it's fixing a system that's become more and more virtual signaling than viable policy. The article nails how these rules, piled on over years, turned into a bureaucratic monster that stalled everything from homes to highways. And here's the kicker, and the reason I mentioned this article. Canada needs to take notes and do the same. Pronto. Our own regulations have gone nuts. Take the Impact Assessment Act. That's the beast from Bill C-69, which drags out approvals for pipelines, mines, and even housing for years with endless consultations and prove no harm hurdles. Or those federal emissions caps on oil and gas that scare off investors, sending billions south to the US where things move faster. We're protecting every wetland frog while energy projects die on the vine, and our economy is paying the price. Lost jobs in Alberta, higher costs everywhere, and growth that's flattening compared to our neighbors. It's crazy how these policies started with good intentions, but ballooned into posture over progress. We're not talking about bulldozing forests willy-nilly. Respect the environment, absolutely. Plant trees, monitor impact, transition smartly. But the UK and others like Germany have shown trying to flip the switch overnight crashes economies, spikes energy prices, and leaves people colder and poorer. Canada could slash those approval timelines, adopt risk-free benefit tests like Reeves is eyeing, and focus protections on truly at-risk stuff. That would unleash development in energy and infrastructure, pump up GDP without mass destruction, and prove we can go green without going broke. Time to wake up before we're left in the dust. All right, now we're going to jump into some stuff I've been seeing on X. I used to use X, Twitter. I used to use it a lot, but I kind of weaned off it for a while. But recently I got back to it and I'm not sure what happened. Suddenly most of my feed is just liberal post after liberal post. I thought they all flew over to Blue Sky. Guess that's not doing as well as everyone thought. Anyways, this post jumped out at me, and it's amazing how people make up facts to validate their own opinion. It's about guns. Okay, so here we go. This person, Taylor Silverman, posted, "What's the normal amount of guns to own?" And the response they got from No Guns in Canada was 0. Most people own 0. Okay, well, when I'm living in the city, I don't have a gun, that's for sure. But Canada is a very big country, and only a small portion of it is cities. There's plenty of people living in the country. Anyways, I'll get to that in a minute. There's more to this thread. So now we have this person, Corinna, not Katrina, elbows up. They reply, "Not in my area. When you live here in rural north, they're kind of necessary." So No Guns jumps back in with this gem. "Of course, just regular guns for regular tasks, like hunting. Don't need 18-year-old city folks buying assault rifles." Sheesh. Okay, let's dive right into the facts about firearms in Canada. Because misconceptions like this one, where someone assumes 0 guns is normal and freaks out about 18-year-olds buying assault rifles, it needs a reality check. First off, how many Canadians actually own legal registered firearms? As of June 2025, there are about 2.4 million licensed firearm owners in Canada. That's roughly 7.5% of the adult population. And as we mentioned before, mostly in rural areas like Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the territories, where firearm ownership rates can hit 20 to 30% in some spots, compared to under 5% in urban centers like Toronto or Vancouver. And what do they use them for? Hunting and sports shooting, think rifles for deer season or shotguns at the range. In fact, 95% of the firearms in Canadian households are long guns, not the handguns or tactical stuff you see in movies. Everyday folks like farmers protecting livestock from predators or families passing down traditions. So no, 0 is not the normal amount. Millions of responsible Canadians disagree, and they're not causing problems. And assault rifles. Come on. Let's clear up when they were banned and why it's laughable to worry about some 18-year-old city kid strolling into a store to buy one.
Our government banned 1,500 models of assault-style weapons, including the Ruger Mini 14 used at Polytechnique and the AR-15. We also expanded background checks to keep firearms out of the wrong hands. We did it because it was what responsible leadership required us to do.
The big crackdown started on May 1st, 2020, when the government prohibited over 1,500 models of assault-style firearms, like AR-15 variants, deeming them unsuitable for civilian use. For an 18-year-old, forget it. You'd need a possession and acquisition license first, which requires safety courses, background checks, and references. But even with that, prohibited guns are off limits. In reality, it's about as likely as winning the lottery. Twice. Basically 0 chance for a city folk teen to access one legally. This idea that they're flooding urban streets? Pure fiction. Now on gun crimes, let's look at the data to see what's really causing the issues. In Canada, the vast majority, around 90 to 95% of firearm-related crimes involve illegal guns, not legal registered ones. According to Statistics Canada data from 2022, only 3% involved a gun that was legally owned and used by the offender without being stolen or diverted. Most crimes use handguns smuggled from the U.S., which account for over 80% of gun homicides and are almost always illegal.
You will see a firearm purchased in the States for potentially, $200, $300, and they'll go in the streets for $3,000, $3,500. So very lucrative for the people that are involved in these kind of activities. They hide them in cars and in panels in their cars, maybe on them, all kinds of, they're ingenious, to be honest, the way they've come up with hiding.
So maybe we should be putting some more energy into monitoring the border rather than posturing for more gun control. Because legal owners, they're involved in a tiny fraction, often cases where a gun was stolen from them. In fact, license owners have crime rates far below general population because of all the vetting. So targeting law-abiding hunters isn't solving gang violence in cities. And so, to really highlight how ridiculous this take is, Canada has some of the strictest gun laws globally. Continuous background checks, storage rules, no concealed carry for self-defense, yet legal owners commit almost no crimes. If 0 guns were normal, why do indigenous communities rely on them for treaty rights and sustenance? Or why hasn't the buyback worked if everyone's so eager to ditch them? This pearl-clutching ignores facts. Guns aren't the problem. Criminals with illegal ones are. Enlighten yourself and don't spread ignorance. Anyways, that's my rant for today. Oh, no, sorry, there's one more, and it's unbelievable. I can't believe this next story. This is Darwin 101. Imagine this. It's a beautiful evening in White Rock, British Columbia, right by the pier. A train suddenly stops, blocking the crossing. Instead of walking a short distance to the safe, designated Balsam Street crossing, a bunch of impatient idiots decide to crawl underneath the massive multi-ton train cars. And get this, not just adults, but parents dragging their little kids with them, forcing them to scramble on their bellies under the train like it's some kind of twisted playground game. Here it is. I'm sitting here smacking my forehead so hard it hurts. What in the world are these people thinking? Trains don't come with warning bells for every little movement. They can lurch forward at any second without any sound, crushing anything or anyone in their path. We're talking instant death or horrific injuries, limbs severed, bodies mangled. The RCMP had to rush in, clear the tracks, and babysit the area for over an hour until the train could safely move again, all because these morons couldn't wait a few minutes. But the real head scratcher? Parents doing this with their children. You're supposed to protect your kids, not lead them straight into a death trap for sake of convenience. This isn't just stupid, it's criminally reckless. And yeah, it's illegal too. Train tracks are private property. Trespassing can slap you with a $500 fine. But that's nothing compared to the lifelong regret if something goes wrong. Sergeant Rob Dixon from the White Rock RCMP said it perfectly. Never crawl under a train. It's illegal and your safety is not worth the shortcut. Gee, no kidding. How do you not instinctively know that crawling under a stopped train is a suicide mission? It's like playing Russian roulette with a freight locomotive. If saving a couple minutes is worth risking your life and your child's, you've got no business being a parent. All right, folks, let's wrap up this episode of Common Sense Loonie with a wild linguistic ride. The Cambridge Dictionary has added over 6,000 new words, and some of them are straight up bizarre. Let's break down a few from the article. Maybe you've heard of some of these. Skibbity. 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 Okay? A nonsense word from the viral YouTube series Skibbity Toilet. Okay? It can mean cool, bad, or just be a goofy filler, like shouting, "What the skibbity are you doing?" Tradwife, short for traditional wife. It's a woman who embraces classic homemaking, cooking, cleaning, and raising kids, and often shares it on social media. Think TikTok moms romanticizing the 1950s vibe. Ready? Delulu, a playful spin on delusional, meaning you're believing something that's not real, usually by choice. Like, I'm going to win the lottery this week. Total Delulu. Mouse Jiggler, a sneaky device or app that keeps your computer awake by faking mouse movement. Perfect for those working at home days when you're binge watching instead. Inspo, short for inspiration. It's that spark you get from scrolling Pinterest or Instagram, like, ooh, that's my new kitchen inspo. Okay, now my wonderful viewers, since you're the inspo that keeps this show going, hit that like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Whether you're vibing with my takes or think I'm totally delulu, I love hearing from all of you. Discourse is how we get smarter, so let's keep it skibbity. If you're out there juggling life like a tradwife or sneaking a mouse jiggler at work, you're my people. So remember, stay strong, stay skeptical, and above all else, stay loony.
I'm here to cut through the haze, no disguise. Gonna open your eyes to politicians' lies. Canada's great, but led by wackos, it's true. Time for no nonsense, me and you. I'm the Common Sense Loonie, hear my call. Ditch bingo night games, we'll fix it all. Common Sense Loonie, that's my tune. Bringing truth to the red and white moon.
Personally, I am a man.